The Founders of Hogwarts, Part 1, Episode 9, written and performed by Amanda K. Skelton, inspired by the wizarding world of Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. Fade in, interior Nordahl's office, next day. Nordahl counts his money, but his stacks are considerably smaller. The row of jealous orchids that line the wall are mostly dead. Only a handful of petals remain. An owl flies into his office and drops a letter on his desk. His assistant rips it open, reading. The Valley School of Sorcery refused our protection, stating that they're moving within the walls of the nobleman's manor, somewhere east of the River Forth, which brings our earnings down, another 10%? Nordahl chews his thumbnail, staring off into the distance, thinking, the crown just takes and takes, leaving us scrounging for anything that glitters. If I could run my own school, if I could collect money for everything, not just protection. That would only pay well if a school could be its own sovereign. That snaps Nordahl to attention. Those words are treacherous, they're treason, and should be kept quiet in company. Allard's shoulders drop in shame, but the afterthought brings a smile to Nordahl's eyes. But that is a fair point, selecting our own rich students. Nordahl fantasizes away. After an uncomfortable pause, Allard clears his throat. So what shall we do about all of this? The court can't make them pay if they don't have the funds. Nordahl gazes at the bags of dragon's fire that sit on his mantle. The blackened tortoise bag containing the Turkish short temper sits right in the front. An idea strikes him. We must kindly remind folks why our services are so important. And I need you to find me a new astronomy teacher. It would seem Salazar's hatred for second-class wizards is greater than his love of the stars. Cut 2. Exterior Londonwick burning grounds. Next day. The town crier finishes wrapping a newly burned body and drags it across the fields, dropping it into a ditch. He jumps down and immediately Nordahl appears behind him, jabbing his wand into the crier's jugular. Imperia. The crier's eyes cloud over white and he slumps back like a puppet waiting to be pulled. Hello again, crier. Still persecuting heretics that aren't actually magical, I see. The town crier nods with a lopsided smile, making eye contact with no one. Every day. Nordahl tightens his grip on the crier. I've got something that will help speed things along and guarantee no escape. But I need 2 things from you. The first is that incredibly large purse that you have on your person. The crier hands his coin purse to Nordahl. And second, I need you to pay a visit to some heathens for me. The crier nods. As you wish. Cut 2. Exterior Glenn's Academy of the Mystical Arts. Later. Samwith stands outside greeting students as they gather into the school. Once the last student is in, he waves his wand and the protection spells ripple up, covering the entire school. Then, Nordahl appears seconds later with 6 other guardians. They throw a dark magical shroud over them so that the town can't see them. Nordahl and his men scatter around the boundary line of the school and point their wands and at once murmur an incantation under their breath. It takes all of their might to create the smallest magical slit in the protection spell, but it's enough. Nordahl motions for the crier to come forward. He checks to make sure that the town crier's eyes are still cloudy and slides the black and tortoise dragon scale bag to the crier. Remember to open from the top and not until you're in the heart of the building. The crier nods. And please send my regards to Samwith. Nordahl magically forces the town crier through the small opening, scraping most of the crier's body blood red in the process. But no matter the pain, the crier carries on with his orders. Nordahl closes the small opening before him, which causes a power surge and force field that blasts him and his henchmen back, breaking the shroud, but Nordahl and his men immediately vanish before anyone can question their existence. Meanwhile, the crier enters the school, the doors closing behind him. Cut to black. Fade in. Exterior, Manor of Doddering Ridge, day. Establishing shot. Rowena, Salazar, Godric, and Helena enter a beautiful manor house. Interior, Manor of Doddering Ridge, day. Every inch of wall, ceiling, and floor is burned black. Even the furniture, books, rugs, pictures, and quills are also solid black in color. Rowena, Salazar, and Godric, along with Helena, walk through the massive, once elegant manor. Did you say there was a fire? not sure. This was how the manor was found. The family mysteriously vanished, but it has 3 levels, including dungeons and a grand bell tower that can easily be converted for stargazing. The mead hall is just through those doors. Godric stands under a beautiful charred chandelier. Who did you say owned this place? Silas de Corpus, the Earl of Doddering Ridge. Helena leans in for a closer look at the stone black walls. Darkness swirls, forming a silhouette of a gaunt body reaching out to her. Helena extends her hand towards the darkness, but her mother grabs her wrist before contact, timidly. She shakes her head no. I don't think the family ever left. Godric looks at a bookshelf and sees the same swirling. I agree, and we need to leave or we won't either. Cut to exterior cave next day. Salazar stands near the top of a cave looking around unimpressed. Godric is halfway down the tunnel, his lit wand bouncing in the distance.
I think I see the bottom.
Rowena and Helena block the sun from their eyes, trying hard to see Godric.
I don't think a cave is a conducive environment for learning. Of course it is. Just needs a bit of sunlight or moonlight. We have access to both.
There's a sudden screech, and several dozen bats fly from the mouth of the cave. Rowena and her daughter both scream in surprise.
By the way, there's bats down here. A little house cleaning, they'll find a new home.
Helena is already halfway to the top of the hill with Rowena right on her heels. Absolutely in no way will I ever teach in a space where bats were prior residents, she huffs. I have a better idea. Cut to interior Rowena's chambers. Day. Rowena writes a quick letter at her desk and sends it out with an owl through the window. Godric and Salazar both enter with books in their hands. All right, we've come up with some new spaces. Cut to montage. They visit a small abbey surrounded by a gassy bog. Helena almost gets swallowed by the swamp. They mark it off their list. Cut to another manor house, but this time with an infestation of large spiders that chase after Salazar. Godric handles the spiders. He's done this before. They mark it off their list. Cut to they visit an abandoned cathedral which looks hopeful, but the vaulted ceilings start to bleed red and they don't stay around long enough to find out why. They mark it off their list. Cut to exterior near the village of Glen, lake, pierside. Day. The sun shines brightly across the lake as Rowena, Godric, and Salazar and Helena gather around on an impressive ship nearly finished being built. Rowena looks around for someone as Salazar admires the shipbuilding. Beautiful ship. But why are they building it on a lake? Because the ship is built by both muggles and wizards? Salazar's face turns sour. Oh, that's hideous. Godric steps up. Isn't that illegal? Yes. A law passed, but isn't enforced because muggles have proved to be the best designers of ships, and wizards' magic elevates those designs. Also, the company wants to work closer to home. Rowena waves at one of the shipbuilders dressed in dark blue robes and hat. He walks up to Rowena, and she greets him. Hello, Booker. Hello, Professor. What brings you by? A place of study and practice. You're all testing today, eh? You want to step aboard and get a feeling of what it's like to be out to sea? Rowena smiles broadly at his assumption. The Booker eyes Godric and Salazar cautiously. Enter at your own risk. He nods to her, then rounds up the other wizards near the small boats. Rowena, Godric, Salazar, and Helena ready to cross the brow, but Rowena stops her daughter. Helena, I'm sorry you can't come with us. Why not? You're not old enough. Rowena points to a sign reading, no one under the age of 11 is permitted to board. That's not fair. I'll be 11 in a few days. I don't make the rules. So what am I supposed to do while you're off having fun? Godric comes over. I have a trick for you. Godric detaches his sword from his belt and takes off his hat. He bends down next to Helena and drops the sword into the crown of the hat and it disappears. Helena's not impressed. That's not really a trick. Anyone can do that. You're right. The real trick is pulling the sword out of the hat. Think you can do it? He presents the hat and she snatches it from him faster than stealing her father's wand. Helena runs off. Rowena is not impressed. You're gonna give a 10-year-old the opportunity to play with a sword? She's almost 11 and it's a hard trick. She'll figure it out. He points to his belt, the sword back in its place. It's a really hard trick. Godric and Salazar cross the brow entering the ship, but Rowena hangs back watching her daughter. Cut to exterior, ship, main deck, continuous. The men step onto the deck and stop surprised to see Helga Hufflepuff standing before them. Gentlemen? Godric and Salazar both bow. Gentlemen, please, no need for niceties. You know I only show my neck to people I respect. Salazar chimes in. And I wasn't reared by savages, so what brings a woman of your stature to a ship like this? Godric's mood brightens. Are you joining us to teach? No, I've agreed to nothing. I'm here because I was asked as a friend. She holds up the letter, and Rowena finally makes her way across the brow. Helga looks at Rowena, who throws her a huge smile. You made it! Salazar throws Rowena an incredulous look. Row, a word. Rowena joins him on the other side of the boat. Salazar motions for Godric to join them. I thought you said not to pressure her. I did, and I'm not. I simply inquired and she showed up on her own volition. Of course she showed up. She's Helga. Row, you would have our heads if we did the same. You're right. And you can bite my head off after this is over, but I know you're both happy to see her, so you're welcome. That is not the point. Look, we've not had any luck, and I just wanted to hear what she had to say since she has some experience in this matter.
Sorry to interrupt,
Helga yells from off-screen, but you might want to grab onto something. Helga points over the edge to several small boats of wizards paddling out surrounding the ship. They all stick their wands into the water. What are they doing? Getting ready to test the ship's ability to stay balanced during high seas. The wizard's wands glow, and the waves start to rise higher and higher. The boat begins to rock. The group breaks away, trying to find something to grab onto. Well, I think a ship is a perfect place to conduct lessons. You know it isn't, Godric. Come on, we could sail the seas, teach classes, explore the world. There's no downside to this. Helga folds her arms, trying to remain steady. Would you like me to list the problems geographically or alphabetically? Salazar interrupts. I see no need for an opinion from someone who isn't involved. And I too like the idea of a ship. The waves get higher, and the rocking gets worse, and everyone starts slipping. Helga finally has to grab onto something, but she's the only one maintaining proper balance. Godric steadies himself, trying to prove that he's just as capable as Helga. Go ahead, list the problems, but do it chronologically if you would. Anyone who suffers from hydrophobia or thalassophobia, students not able to swim, chronic motion sickness, cabin fever, scurry, tropical storms such as, but not limited to, white squalls, hurricanes, or cyclones, being ruined on a desert island without parental consent, being pillaged by pirates, possibly causing some of our students to become pirates themselves. Should I continue? They all look green around the mouth. Sounds like you speak from experience. The waves give one last jolt, and just as it's about to knock everyone off their feet, Helga throws magical lines to keep everyone safe. Then trust me when I say it's a bad idea. Cut 2. Exterior near the village of Glen Lake, Pierside. Continuous. The 4 friends exit the ship looking sick. Godric suddenly checks his belt. I dropped my sword. I don't think you did. They all look out at Helena as she comes running up to them. Captain, I figured it out. With the hat in one hand and the sword of Gryffindor in the other, she beams. The adults are all stunned and still a little nauseous. Did she just pull that sword out of your hat? She did. Rowena folds her arms. A hard trick, is it? Godric can't help but be impressed. Elena gives him back the sword and hat. I have to ask, how'd you pull the sword out of the hat? I tried several sleights of hand charms, but in the end I just asked nicely. Really? Elena shifts nervously in place. Am I in trouble? No, you're not in trouble. He addresses the hat, who smiles up at him. But you and I need to have a talk. The hat looks up confused. Cut 2. Interior, near the village of Glen Lake, Pierside. Tent. Continuous. Everyone gathers in the tent. Godric has an ice pack over his eyes. Salazar lays down like a starfish on a rug. Helga is slumped in a chair sipping tea. Rowena gingerly stands, her expression harsh, as she marks out another place on the main map on the wall. What about the old Camden church? That entire parish is infested with muggles. I agree with Salazar. Practicing magic in such a muggle-friendly place is dangerous at best. What about Wales? You haven't gone there? No! Helga's hands fly up in defense. I'm just saying there's a castle north of Cardiff that was half destroyed after the Viking invasion. You could set up boundaries, keep muggles out, have plenty of room to coexist. Sounds promising if it wasn't in bloody Wales. Helga goes back to sipping her tea since that seems more productive. Rowena looks back at the map. I like the idea of a castle. We'll need land. We'll need a lot more than that. Look, I don't care where we teach. I just want it to be safe and far from the muggle world. They all agree. Rowena looks down and remembers. I need to be in court by the end of next week. For what? I have to fight to keep the Pegasus bone. Greece wants to take it back, and I have to explain to them why I still need it. A Pegasus bone? For what? To contain dragon's fire. Can't you already contain dragon's fire with water? The amount of water required to smother it would drown anyone who survived the flames. Can't you just charm yourself some gills and swim out? Helga looks over at the lake as Rowena answers Godric. That's the real tragedy of dragon's fire. Even if you were lucky enough to survive the flames, no charm, no gillyweed can repair the kind of burnt damage to the lungs. Helga sees black smoke pouring out of the side of the mountain, but it's an odd image. There's smoke coming off that mountainside. I don't even see flames. That's because the mountain's just a facade for the... Rowena sees the billowing clouds thicken. Zalzar steps out. The town's on fire. Blood drains from Rowena's face. No, that's coming from the school. Immediately, Helga, Godric, and Salazar all gather their cloaks, swords, and wands ready to leave. Rowena turns to her daughter. Helena, stay here. What? Stay here. The four apparate away. Helena goes to her mother's bag and finds her father's wand. Cut to black.